One of the most well-known families from World War II, probably if you had to ask anybody, would be the Frank family. And you're probably wondering why I'm saying this. Well, do you remember in middle school or high school whenever they would have us read the Diary of Anne Frank before a lot of people decided to get together and temporarily ban it? Exactly. For stupid reasons, might I add. But I digress. Anyway, um, The I love reading about the Diary of Anne Frank. It taught us about history and it showed us we have to a darker side of history that people don't realize. And this was just not about a young girl whose family went into hiding. It was about World War II, the Holocaust and all of that. And it was her own experience. And people who want to get it banned, well, you're just being stupid at this point. You saw the warning at the beginning of the episode. I am not changing my mind on it whatsoever. So if that bothers you, there's the door. Anyway, the Holocaust killed approximately 6 million people, for crying out loud. And this is crucial to learning, and by learning, we can't forget that it happened. We can do better to prevent something like that from happening ever again. So, on this episode of People of History, I am going to be talking about the brave woman who helped the Frank family hide among another family individual as well. And you might know her as Miep Geis, but her government name is actually Hermine Geis Santrauschitz, and she was a Dutch citizen, and she was better known for hiding the Frank family, and also she also has four other Dutch Jews as well. The Van Hels and Pfeiffer from the Nazi annex above Otto Frank's business premises during World War II. Now she was Austrian by birth, and in 1920, at 11, she was taken in by a Dutch family for 6 months. And this was extended to 1 year because of frail health, for which she chose to remain and live the rest of her life in the Netherlands. In 1933, she would begin working for Otto Frank, who was a Jewish businessman who moved with his family from Germany to the Netherlands in hope for being spared from Nazi persecution. She became a trusted ally and a friend of the Frank family, and she was such a great support to them that during their 25 months spent hiding, together with her colleague Vet Volskold, I do apologize if I'm butchering that name up, but she retrieved Anne Frank's diary, and after the family was arrested, she kept the papers safe until Otto returned from Auschwitz in June 1945 and learned of Anne's death soon afterwards. Geis has stored Anne's papers in hopes of returning them to her. Instead, she gave them to Otto, who compiled them into a diaries first published in June of 1947. It was in collaboration with Alison Leslie Gold that Geis would go on to write what would be Anne Frank Remembered, the story of a woman who helped to hide the Frank family in 1987. Miep Geis would die in 2010 at the age of 100. I think it's amazing when people live that long because they have a story to tell. And for some of them, they may not say it like that, but their story teaches us so much. Um, let's talk about her early life. She was born in Vienna, February 15, 1909, to Caroline Maria Strasberg, and she was sent to Leiden from Vienna in 1920. And this was for her escape of a food shortage that was occurring in Austria after the First World War. Um, and the Nurembergs were a working class family who already had 5 children. They took her as a foster daughter and called her Miep, by which she became well known. In 1922, she moved in with her foster family to Gastris in Amsterdam, and she was an honor student, and she was described herself as a reserved and very independent. She worked as an accountant after graduating high school. In 1933, she worked as a secretary with the Dutch branch of the German spy firm Optica. And she will write, Now, so and it's also important to keep in mind that Otto Frank at this time had just relocated from Germany and had been appointed a managing director for Optica, recently expanding Dutch operations. Geis Frank's employees became a close family, as did her fiance Jan Geis. After she refused to join the Nazis' Women Association, her passport was invalidated, and she was ordered to be deported back to Austria within 90 days. Um, by then, annexed by Germany, which classified her as a German citizen. So, the couple faced some difficulties, but they were married July 16, 1941, so she could attain Dutch citizenship and evade deportation. Now, Gees was fluent in Dutch and German and helped the Frank family assimilate into the Dutch society. And she and her husband became regular guests at the Frank home. So you're probably wondering how did hiding the families come about? Well, with her husband Jan and other employees, Miep helped hide Otto and Edith Frank, their daughters Margot and Anne. Then she would hide the Van Pels, the Herman, August, and Peter, and then Fritz Pfeiffer, and several rooms in the company's office located in Um, Amsterdam, from July 6, 1942 to August 4th, 1944. In an interview she gave, she was glad that she helped the families because she was extremely concerned after seeing um what had happened to the Jews in Amsterdam, and every day she saw trucks loaded with Jews heading to the railway station en route to Nazi concentration camps. She did not tell anyone, including her foster family, about the people hiding whom she was assisting. And with with when food purchasing food for the people in the attic, she avoided suspicion in many ways. For visiting several suppliers in the day, she carried more than what one shopping bag could hold, and what she could hide under her coat to prevent the workers from being suspicious. Now she tried not to enter the hiding place during office hours, and her husband also helped by providing ration cards that he had obtained illegally by visiting various grocery shops and markets on a regular basis. And Cheese developed a good sense of supply situation, and at their apartment, it was close to where the Franks had lived before going into hiding. Jees and her husband Jan also hid an anti-Nazi university student as well. So you're probably wondering, how is the capture? Well, been many things about the capture. However, on the morning of August 4th, 1944, sitting at her desk, Jees, alongside Voskuil and Kleiman, was confronted by a man with a gun saying, "Stay put, don't move, not a sound." It was not known whether an informant or a chance of discovery by authorities ended their period of refuge. Now, the group, along with Golger and Kleiman, were arrested, and whose teams were usually tasked with investigating financial crimes, were not with and not with searching for hidden Jews. The element developed together with the fact that they inspected all the crates, bags, and jars before finding a revolving bookcase that indicates that perhaps they were not aware about the hiders. Miep and Vep were not arrested with the group, and Jees managed to excuse herself, saying she had nothing to do with the hiding. And Johannes Kleiman gave Varskill his wallet with the request to take it to the desk of Dort Collin, who had a pharmacy in a corner there, and a prearranged signal to inform Kleiman's family that there was a problem. And she was able to leave the building unhindered because no police officers were guarding the outside at that moment. And the next day, she went to the German police to try to find the arrestees. She offered money to buy their freedom but did not succeed. Jees and other helpers had been executed. Um, and if they had called hiding Jews. However, She was not arrested because the police officer came to interrogate her from Vienna, her birth town, and she recognized his accent and told him that they had the same hometown. He was amazed and he started pacing and cursing at her, finally deciding to let her stay. And she remained safe with her husband in Amsterdam throughout the rest of the war. Before the hiding place was emptied by the authorities, Geis and the younger secretary, Miep, would retrieve the parts of Anne Frank's diaries and save them in the desk drawer. Geis was determined to give them back to Anne. After the war had ended, it was confirmed that Anne Frank had died at one of the concentration camps. Also gave a collection of papers and notebooks to his sole survivor from the secret annex, Otto Frank, and after transcribing sections for his family, he was persuaded of the value of Anne's account and her ideals and arranged the books for his first publication in 1947. Geis did not read the diaries before turning them over to Otto, and later remarked that if she had, she would have had to destroy them because the papers contained all the names of all 5 helpers, as well as their black market suppliers, and she was persuaded by Otto to read the diary in the second printing. In 1947, Miep and Jan um, but to Jerkestrat and by I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, along with Otto Frank. Now, Meep had assured Anne Frank's biographer Melissa Mueller repeatedly that she did not think the main suspect, Wilhelm van Meeren, was the culprit of the betrayal. So, Meep and Jan were recognized as righteous among the nations by Yashim, March 8, 1972. And in 1992, she was given the award for the Order of the Merit of the Federal Republic in Germany by the Wallenberg Medal at the University of Michigan. In 1997, she was knighted Order of Orange Nassau by Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands. The minor planet would give me is named in her honor as well. Um, excuse me. On June 30th, 2009, the Austrian ambassador of Netherlands, Wolfgang Paul, presented the Grand Decoration of Honor of Service for the Republic of Austria to the Geis at their home. She would pass away January 11, 2010, at the age of 100 in the city of Horn after suffering injuries from a fall. And she was interviewed about the memories about hiding the Frank family for the 1995 documentary Anne Frank Remembered. And her stories were adapted into a miniseries, A Small Light, with Belle Powley. And Geis was also portrayed by actress and comedian Pat Carroll in the 2007 film Freedom Riders featuring Hilary Swank. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. On our next episode, we are going to do an overview into one of the most controversial British aristocrat families. See if you can guess who they are. Y'all have a great day. Also gave a collection of papers and notebooks to his sole survivor from the secret annex, Otto Frank, and after transcribing sections for his family, he was persuaded of the value of Anne's account and her ideals and arranged the books for his first publication in 1947. Geis did not read the diaries before turning them over to Otto, and later remarked that if she had, she would have had to destroy them because the papers contained all the names of all 5 helpers, as well as their black market suppliers, and she was persuaded by Otto to read the diary in the second printing. In 1947, Meep and Jan um, to Jerkestrat and by I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, along with Otto Frank. Now, Meep had assured Anne Frank's biographer Melissa Mueller repeatedly that she did not think the main suspect, Wilhelm van Meeren, was the culprit of the betrayal. So, Meep and Jan were recognized as righteous among the nations by Yashim, March 8, 1972. And in 1992, she was given the award for the Order of the Merit of the Federal Republic in Germany by the Wallenberg Medal at the University of Michigan. In 1997, she was knighted Order of Orange Nassau by Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands. The minor planet we give Miep Meep is named in her honor as well. Um, excuse me. On June 30th, 2009, the Austrian ambassador of Netherlands, Wolfgang Paul, presented the Grand Decoration of Honor of Service for the Republic of Austria to the Geis at their home. She would pass away January 11, 2010, at the age of 100 in the city of Horn after suffering injuries from a fall. And she was interviewed about the memories about hiding the Frank family for the 1995 documentary Anne Frank Remembered. And her stories were adapted into a miniseries, A Small Light, with Belle Powley. And Geis was also portrayed by actress and comedian Pat Carroll in the 2007 film Freedom Riders featuring Hilary Swank. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. On our next episode, we are going to do an overview to one of the most controversial British aristocrat families. See if you can guess who they are. Y'all have a great day.